Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's Max from the Mama's Legacy podcast, and I'm joined here with a little bit of a delusional Colts fan. He thinks the Colts could be, well, favorites if Andrew Luck came back. But hey, introduce your stuff, plug your stuff, and I will definitely, remember, guys, I will have his links all in the description.
Yeah, definitely. Alex Rondo Griffin. I am half of the Colts Beat podcast brought to you by the Say It Again Network. And whenever you listen to a podcast, iTunes, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Stitcher, you can catch us there. Give us a follow on Twitter at SIA Colts Beat.
All right, guys, remember, I will have all the links in the description, but let's jump right into the what's next for the Colts right now. So I think the first things first, you brought in Wentz, but Wentz is obviously injured right now. We don't know. I forgot what the timetable is. Do you know that off the top of your head?
So they announced when it first happened that it was 5 to 12 weeks, but he's like, the way he's looking now, they're saying he might be actually ready for week one.
Okay, well, I think that's a bit of a push. I thought it was pretty bad. I remember it was like a 12 or something week, but if week one, I don't think you play him even if he is ready. I think you give him a week. But so let's just say he's not playing week one. You have Eason and you have Ellinger. Who do you want? Like, Wentz isn't playing. Who do you, out of those two guys, who do you think would take the starting reps week one?
Jacob Eason, no question. Ellinger is one, and I've said this time and time again. Ellinger is a product. He's a 6th-round pick. He's a scrambler. He's too short. It's not happening. Eason is the guy. 3rd-round pick last year, sat an entire year underneath Phillip Rivers, and we were talking about him off the stream. So he got tutelage from that guy. He was the plan for the future. Not to mention the fact that Colts fans, that's the guy who you all wanted the second Rivers retired. And again, kind of agreeing with you, like even if Wentz is good to go, I'd sit him. You put Eason, it's the perfect situation and whatnot. And because of the way our team is built, he doesn't need to even come in and save us. He just needs to come in and just not turn over the ball. But it's Jacob Eason, 100%, no question. Sam Ellinger is irrelevant.
I do agree with that. I was confused. There were some reports I've seen here and there that they're still up for grabs for that week one position. I found that a little bit confusing. I thought he'd definitely get it, but like you said, he just doesn't need to turn the ball over because Jonathan Taylor. Do you think he's going to get 20 carries a game? Do you think that?
I don't know about him per se, but our running back room is so deep that whoever's under center is going to have an easier time because obviously we have Marlon Mack back. Now, Naeem Hines doesn't really take too many carries, but the duo of Mack and Taylor are going to at least run the ball, I'll say 30 times combined between the two of them at the minimum.
Yeah, the reason I said that is because Marlon Mack's coming back from the it was an Achilles injury, right?
I believe so. Yeah, it was one of those killers. One of those killers. So.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not hating on Mac right now, but I definitely believe that he's got to rely on the rest of the running back room to take some of those carries off and resist an injury again. So I strongly believe that Jonathan Taylor is going to have an increased role, and I think he might potentially have a really big season coming up. With Marlon Mack coming up from injury, how excited and or cautious are you that he is back?
It's honestly a great thing to see him back. Obviously, he's definitely a fan favorite, a very underrated running back in the league. And, when you saw him go down with the injury last year, it was definitely just heartbreaking, whatnot. It's a guy who's worked his tail off, was a 5th-round pick, worked his way up to being the starter on the team. So getting him back for one more than anything puts the veteran presence back because – Hines is, I believe, year 3 or year 4. Taylor's going into year 2. Wilkins, I believe, is also year 3. So Mac's really the veteran in that running back group. So he's going to bring a lot of just maturity more than anything.
I definitely agree. I'm just a bit concerned. It was an Achilles injury. Those are killer for running backs. They sometimes linger on, and that's what I'm really worried about. But so we've also touched on the fact that Carson Wentz, he could potentially be back. I think we're both in agreement. He should not play week one if he's available. But if he does come back, do you see Pittman or Hilton being the number one receiver?
It's going to be T.Y. Hilton, but the way that our kind of our wide receiver room is kind of built and really how the offense runs, everyone rotates. But if you looked at all the preliminary depth charts throughout the preseason, Hilton has permanently been in that number one, yet the other receivers have moved. Pittman, Campbell, Strawn, Pascal, they have all moved up and down the depth chart. But what has stayed permanent is that Hilton is that number one and locked in. So no matter what, as long as Hilton is on this Colts team, he's going to be that number one X receiver.
I agree. I mean, Hilton's done a lot for this franchise. I think it'd be a little bit disrespectful not to have a number one. I also believe that he's going to be the number one option. He's going to have a number one receiver. He's going to definitely make big plays, clutch plays. But at the same time, I believe that he won't have the most receiving yards. I think Pittman's definitely going to have that. I love Hilton to death, but receivers once they get over that the age 30 year, they're kind of starting to slow down, and Ty is kind of on the wrong side right now. So, I mean, back on Ty, how long do you see him staying a part of this Colts roster?
See, and that's the tough thing, because if I'm being honest, I wrote him off as leaving this offseason. And obviously social media, and I was part of it, went on this big push to help get him back, which he admitted was definitely a deciding decision in bringing him back. He was offered more money by the Ravens and turned that down. I venture to say this might be his swan song with the Colts. And like it pains me to say that. It's one of my favorite Colts receivers of all time, counting obviously 88 and 87. Like T.Y. Hilton was like really the guy who maybe kind of really loved, I guess, short man football, if you will, because he's a guy, he's 5'7", whatnot. He's not supposed to be a killer receiver, yet he goes out there and brings it. I think this might be his last year in a Colts uniform. Like I said, it pains me, but it's like you look at the guys we have underneath him, the youth, Campbell, Pascal, Pittman, Mike Strawn, who's been very special and brand new. Hilton at the age of 31 he's the veteran of the offense. He's a veteran. He's the oldest player on the team, like the entire team. So I think this is going to be his last year.
I definitely think it's going to be his last year. We've seen how receivers can get tossed around. Granted, a lot of these guys did want out. Like, for example, Julio Jones wanted out, but they didn't get too much of Julio Jones, if I'm not mistaken, from the Titans. And, these kind of receivers after the age of 30 are pretty expendable. And I think that is going to be, unfortunately, Ty. I don't think they're going to re-sign him. Like you said, oldest player on the rosters. They're going for more youth. And I agree with the Colts direction because they're one of the best young teams in this league. And I can honestly say that. But if I'm not mistaken, is Rhodes still on the roster?
I'm sorry, what was that? One more time?
Is Xavier Rhodes still on the roster?
Yeah, we brought him back on a 1-year contract. He is our starting in one corner.
Do you think he can keep shadowing receivers? I mean, in Minnesota, his last couple years in Minnesota, everybody wrote him off. His legs looked pretty weak. His knees looked like they'd given up on him. He didn't have the worst season, though, with the Colts last year. I believe that was his first year with y'all. Do you still think he can keep up, maybe being able to guard some of the top receivers in this league?
He definitely can. I would say majority of it is our scheme definitely helps playing the cover two. He's not required to do too much with the zone, not to mention the fact that with our improved pass rush now, his life is going to be a little easier. But I'll say this, we need him to, because I would say in terms of the depth on this team, corner is probably the biggest concerns and questions. I haven't seen next to left tackle, and maybe we'll even get into that. So we kind of need him to really bring the same energy and play that he brought last season, like I said, which was amazing for us and definitely needed, because with Rocky Sin still having question marks and whatnot, and obviously not ready to take the number one mantle. Kenny Moore is a pure slot corner. You're not going to bump him with number one, and TJ Carey has been excellent as a number two. Rhodes is really the only guy on the roster who can be the number one. So if he doesn't work out, we're in trouble.
I definitely agree. I think Rhodes, he's going to be kind of the X factor for your guys' secondary defense. If he's not playing well, I feel like it's going to crumble apart. There's going to be a wide open gap there. But Xavier Rhodes has, he played pretty well last year when I wrote his career off. I mean, last year I thought Josh Norman might have been nicer than him, or even Malcolm Butler. But honestly, Xavier Rhodes has changed my mind really fast in 1 year. And you are right. We're going to get into the left tackle situation. And Eric Fisher, he's out for a while, obviously. Is it Sam Tevi? Is he going to be the starter?
Absolutely not. It is Julian Davenport, who, according to Reich, has officially won the job until Fisher is back.
Are you concerned about that at all?
I'm still concerned, But Davenport in the preseason has played the best. He has not been a revolving door like Sam Tevian and Will Holden. So I feel like he can at least hold his own. And I don't think, and I have to probably look into it. I don't think we're playing any like serious pass rushers. I don't know. Do the Seahawks still have Frank Clark?
I think he just got another felony charge against him, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
okay. So I mean, well, that sucks. But so at least in the immediate future, we're not facing any elite edge rushers, so I'm not too concerned. But he still has to, again, similar to Wentz, similar to Rhodes, he has to come prove it. But I'm more confident in him than I ever was in Sam Tevier or Will Holden.
I agree with that, but the one thing I'm really concerned is the fact that Carson Wentz is your quarterback, who is known to have glass legs. No disrespect to him, but every time he gets sacked, everybody's kind of worried if, you know, uh, if when he gets sacked, he's not going to get back up due to injury. So obviously, it's a big loss not having a solidified left tackle. Fisher will be back, and when Fisher gets back, I'm not as worried. But how worried are you that Carson Wentz, just say hypothetically, comes back week 2? How concerned are you?
Well, week 2 in particular, it depends whether number 56 is out there because week 2 we play the Rams. You already know what that means. You're going up against Aaron Donald. If we have Quentin Nelson there, then I'm probably feeling way more safe than if Quentin Nelson is not in that game. But even I would say even excluding Quentin Nelson and whatnot, Wentz is going to be playing behind the best O line he's ever had in his career. Because like if you look at his stats, the least number of times Wentz has ever been sacked in a season was 29, and that was this past season. He didn't even play all the games.
Mm.
To whereas go to last year, Phillip Rivers only got sacked 18 times, and let's be real, in a foot race, Wentz probably lapped Phillip Rivers 3 times. So I'd venture to say some of those sacks could be evaded by someone with more mobility. So I'm really honestly not too concerned about him getting hit or touched. Yes, he does have injury problems, but definitely the play of our O-line is going to help because he's had terrible O-lines over in Philly.
All right. Well, other than the sacks, also, we're joined here with Anthony. What's going on, Anthony?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Remember, links to their socials and their podcast will be in the description. But let's jump in. The Colts also had a bunch of contract extensions. They had 2 big ones. I believe it was Quentin Nelson and Darius Leonard, right?
It's actually Braden Smith and Leonard.
All right. I knew it was 2 of them. But real quick, Leonard, he's been one key player for your defense. How do you feel about the extension right there?
Easily the best move of Ballard's tenure as a GM, and he's had a lot of good ones. You first off, you weren't gonna let that guy go. That guy's been a freak of nature since you brought him in. Obviously, thusly named the Maniac. 2nd-round pick, was listed by Mel Kiper as the worst pick of the draft. Goes on, wins defensive rookie of the year, whatnot. Is a monster tackler, flies to the balls all over the field, jumps off your screen, and now he's gonna be in Colts blue for a long time coming. You love to see it, and like I said, we love our Maniac down here in Indy.
Anthony, what do you feel about the extension?
Yeah, obviously, I agree with that. I think it's one of Ballard's best moves. Obviously, there are a lot of guys who don't agree with this signing. The first one that comes to mind is the biggest Darius Leonard fan I know. I think his name is That Franchise Guy on YouTube and Twitter. I think his name is Marcus Whitman. That dude's like the certified Colts hater, the guy that every Colts fan hates. But like he was like, man, oh man, the Colts are gonna regret this deal in a couple of years because he has his limitations. But like, imagine this: he's been playing in the league 3-4 years now. He's been a 2-time first team All Pro, first team, and a 1-time second team All Pro, and he still has time and still has room to improve. Just imagine the like where he's gonna be at in like 3 or 4 years. Yeah, he can improve in coverage and stuff like that, but just be glad that like you extended him at this point. Nobody expected him to be a breakout player because he's a 2nd-round pick. In that draft, a bunch of linebackers were taken ahead of him. Roquan Smith comes to mind. He was taken in the top 10. Van Der Esch was taken in the 1st round, and Leonard was sought after. And the fact that he is this good at this point is astounding. And I think that it was really important to extend him. because really, if we didn't, like, another team was going to do it at the same price tag.
Well, definitely. I think he maybe even could earn a little bit more. But Leonard is really taken this league by storm. Started off, and he hasn't taken his foot off the gas pedal here. But another team that hasn't taken their foot off the gas pedal, they have one hell of a running back, and unfortunately are in your division. Let's start off with: do you guys think that you can get the first place in this division?
Easily. Or okay, fine. Let me be fair. Not easily, but it's very much doable. Look, Tennessee. I'm not going to disrespect Tennessee. They have a very nice team over there. They've gone on a great, nice run. They revived Ryan Tannehill's career. Derrick Henry is arguably the best receiver in the league. I would put him top 2, top 3. But all those nice pieces on offense don't play defense. And that is their Achilles heel. It's been their Achilles heel for years. And let's go back to last season. The only reason they beat us is because we were literally missing half of our team due to COVID protocols. So they still haven't even proven that they can beat us on equal strength.
I agree. Anthony, what do you think about the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. To me, the Titans this year, they kind of remind me of the Chiefs in years past, where they're gonna have a really high-powered offense and a really bad defense, and it can only take you so far because I mean, like, there is that saying that goes, good offense will beat a great defense, which is true. And we saw where it takes Kansas City, but in the Super Bowl, they could not stop Tampa, and they just can't stop teams. And having a great offense is fine, but you have to have a good defense. And until they make some more moves on defense, I don't really see Tennessee as as good as everybody says they are. I think they're going to be around a 10 or 11 win team. I think the Colts are going to be around a 10 or 11 win team. So I think it's going to be a toss up, but I don't think it's out of the question for the Colts getting first place in the AFC South this year. I don't think it's as far off as people think it is.
I don't think it's a crazy take, but just real quick to recap some of the highlights of the Titans defense, which we're not going to say is completely empty. Kevin Byard, I believe that's how you say his name. He's not terrible. And Hooker is not bad either. And they picked up Bud Dupree, I believe, in free agency. So they have some pieces. Like, don't get me wrong, their defense is terrible, but their offense has upward AJ Brown, and they picked up Julio Jones. They have Ryan Tannehill, who's one hell of a game manager, and Derrick Henry. This offense can be on the field 80% of the game. Let's be perfectly honest. They can run that ball, run the clock down for 70, 80% of this game. And at that point, your defense just needs to not be complete dog shit. Now, their defense isn't great. It's bad. But is it really dog shit levels to where they can lose the game? No, I don't believe it is. The Colts, I think they're nice. The Colts are all around pretty nice, but Carson Wentz, he's not that guy. I'm against that. If he doesn't succeed here with his old offensive coordinator, he never will. And I think he's out of the league. And I think you don't have a backup that can really come in and compete with the Titans. I think we can agree to that. If Wentz is not playing well and he's not the starter, I think you can maybe both agree that your backups can't really compete with the Titans. I mean, I'd love to hear an argument against that.
Well, see, here's the thing. Like, by all means, by you saying, Wentz isn't that guy, it's like, I'm not necessarily disputing that, but the flip side of that is he doesn't need to be that guy. The way this team is built, one, we're defense first, and then two, as we mentioned off the air, it's like we have a three-headed monster of running backs back, and I mentioned about the best O-line in the league. So first things and foremost, Wentz is barely going to get touched. Maybe 15 sacks, probably a max of 19. He's barely going to get touched. He's got extremely good, fast, young, shifty running backs behind him, whatnot. Now, again, the one spot you can talk about our offense is our receivers. They may not be the best in the world, but we're not terrible either. I would call our receiving group probably around the average range. But so the thing with Wentz is he really doesn't have that much pressure because he doesn't need to come in here and be a gunslinger. He can really come in and essentially be a game manager, and we're going to be just fine. You go back to last year, Phillip Rivers really wasn't much of a gunslinger either. The only games where he kind of had to were really games where he threw us in the trouble, like, namely like the Browns game. You could even point to the playoff game. So, but Wentz doesn't need to come in here and light it up. He really just needs to come in here and not mess it up.
I mean, I agree. Before I let you hop in really quick, Anthony, here, I believe that you and the Titans run a kind of like overall, you guys are both game managers who want to win the ball by having it in your hands. Am I correct there?
Okay, I mean, as a Colts fan, it's like I'll answer by sure, because there will be certain games, namely is when we beat the Chiefs 2 years ago with Jacoby at center, where the name of the game was keep the ball away. But then we've had games, back in that same season, like against Tampa Bay, where we, for whatever reason, we decide to try to get into this air fight. So we go back and forth with it. We should, be one of those contained teams, but we're not consistent with that.
So I think it's kind of close to what the Titans do. The Titans can, I mean, if they really want to, they can get 40 points if they really run the offense well. And they're having games where they've put up good numbers, but there's also been games where they've won by 3 points or something like that. I believe if you guys play each other, I think it would just come to so the offense for the Titans is better than yours, in my opinion. But the defense for you guys is way better than the Titans, in my opinion. So overall, I think if you guys went at it, let's say wild card round, let's just say you guys play each other first round of the playoffs, right? Do you believe that you could really beat them in a one winner takes all game? Wentz is not playing well, Titans offense is playing well, and your defense is playing well. Their defense is playing like shit, right? A shootout game. You guys have a shootout game with the Tennessee Titans. Do you win that game?
I'm going to say yes, because you've noticed this thing with the Titans really since Derrick Henry's taken over as the starter, is that he tends to start off slow, he picks it up late, but come postseason, that guy disappears.
Ooh,
and
I'm
just saying it happens.
Well, I'd say yes and no to that.
Do you want to end up like Earl Thomas did?
Earl Thomas.
Don't remember Earl Thomas said he's not that good in the postseason. Then he got used as a human blocking shield.
I remember that. Okay, I remember that one.
Well, I remember that. I forgot what year it was. I think it was a couple years ago when they went to the AFC Championship. He had that great few game stretch, but then they went to New England. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it was New England, and that guy disappeared. So I don't know. If you kind of take him out of the game, he's kind of. I guess he does disappear, which I'll just get my take right now. I think the Colts would win because, for example, if you take Jonathan Taylor out of the game, you got Marlon Mack, who just ran for 1,000 yards when he was healthy a couple years ago. You still got Naeem Hines, who has like Olympic level speed and is great in the receiving game. So I think the Colts running game as a group is a lot better than the Titans is. And even if Wentz is playing like shit, I think that you can still pound the ball because the teams that win in January are teams that can pound the ball into the ground. So,
well, another back to that thing where you said where Derrick Henry disappeared and they completely lost that game. They didn't have great receivers. I think we can both agree to that. They didn't. Now they have AJ Brown, who's turned into a stud, and Julio Jones. You guys have Xavier Rhodes as your number one quarterback. Can Xavier Rhodes really guard Julio Jones even at this stage of Julio's career?
I mean, Rhodes has a history of playing Julio decently well. Again, like I'm probably one of the bigger Julio Jones fans, so I'm not going to sit there and try to disrespect him because you can't. That guy is an absolute monster, and it does make the Titans deadly. But back to we talked about it off the air. What's going to help in Rhodes or whoever we may throw on Julio Jones and AJ Brown is our pass rush, because also when talking about Tennessee's O-line, really, after Taylor Lewan, I would say their O-line is middle of the pack, to whereas our defensive line, and especially that guy in the middle, 99 Buckner, is the number 2 defensive tackle in the league. And me saying that is disrespectful because we all know who number 1 is. That guy's a monster. Kwity Paye, rookie, is going to excel because he's facing one-on-ones because of the attention that Buckner brings. Tannehill's going to be scrambling whatnot. He's not going to have the time that he needs to really find his guys down the field. So even though his receivers are an improvement, the offensive line is going to hurt him.
I definitely agree. So now let's wrap this up and let's go with honest predictions. Now, you guys are so honest. You guys are great. I heard that one of you guys have the Colts favorites to win the Super Bowl if Luck came back. I'm messing with you guys. But honestly, What's your honest record prediction coming up? And if you do make the playoffs, what's your prediction going into the playoffs? We'll start off with Anthony. I think he hasn't spoke too much. So Anthony, why don't you start off? What are your honest predictions this coming into the season?
Honest predictions, I think the Colts are going to be an 11-win team again. Just the reasoning behind that is Philip Rivers had his limitations last year. I just felt like the Colts just did like a bunch of dumb shit. And if we like just watching some of these games, like Alex mentioned, the Browns game last year, like the Browns were like trying their hardest and they still barely beat us. Like if Philip Rivers doesn't throw the ball to the other team in the second half, like the entire second half, like we literally win that game. And then like aside from like the Titans game last year, like the Colts could have easily been a 13-win team. It's just like these little stupid mistakes that I felt like we could have cleaned up. And I'm not saying that Carson Wentz is going to clean those up, but I feel like these like a lot of people think like the Colts are going to be like say like an 8-9 win team. I just think that's ridiculous because last year I think we easily could have been a 13-win team if we could have easily made those like didn't make those stupid things. So I'm thinking easily an 11-win team this year because basically you're bringing the entire team back. You're bringing the entire coaching staff back except for offensive coordinator. But the guy who's offensive coordinator now is quarterback's coach, and he's a brilliant mind. And I just really believe in this team. And I really do think that if Wentz if he gets his shit together, I think he's gonna be a good player for the Colts because, like you said earlier, the backups this preseason haven't been looking too hot. Jacob Eason and Sam Ellinger and Carson Wentz, he's come back and he looks like Tom Brady compared to these guys. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to see what Carson Wentz looks like because I remember Carson Wentz's first practice in training camp. You know, everybody was freaking out and then he gets hurt. But then he comes back. Literally the first day he gets back, everybody's thinking that Carson Wentz is just going to ease his way back into training camp, but he's going to take it easy. His first day back, he's working with the ones that he's making these crazy highlight plays, and social media is going crazy. So I think that because he has such a big chip on his shoulder, he's going to want to play well. So I'm thinking at least a 10 or 11-win team to me. And you know, when the playoffs come around, I think it's all about who's hot at the right time. So obviously, man, I could see like first, second round Super Bowl. I don't know. Obviously, I would love for the Colts to win the Super Bowl. That's what I want to happen. But it's all about who's hot at the right time.
All right. I mean, I can get behind a lot of that. Rondo, if I'm saying that right. What are your honest predictions coming into the season?
Yeah, honestly, I kind of agree with Anthony. 10 to 11 wins sounds about right. I believe the Vegas odds. I believe Vegas has our over under at 9.5, 10. So I think that number 10 is good. Again, I'm not gonna go crazy. Oh no, we're going 15-2. Like let's be real. Let's calm down a little bit. We still have some questions to answer, but 10 wins is by all means very much possible. Because first and foremost, you get 2 games against the Jaguars and you get 2 games against
the Texans.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah. See, you can't remember who they are. That's how terrible they are. So you get 4 cakewalk games. So that should easily be 4 wins right there. You look at our schedule. We face some tough teams in there. There's an important stretch which is gonna kind of show me whether we're serious or not. And it's weeks 8, 9, and 10. We get Tennessee, the Jets, and Jacksonville. But those are 3 home games. So that stretch right there is gonna tell me whether we're serious or not. Because that stretch right there is gonna tell me whether I think our ceiling could be the AFC Championship, but I would put our floor at either losing in the wild card round or barely missing the playoffs. But like I said, this team should be a playoff team. You were a playoff team last year. I feel you got better, maybe not at quarterback, but you did get better at other positions. You know, you mentioned that fact. Our division is literally a 2-man race. So as long as we edge out the Titans, we make the playoffs by default. But that that number 10 of wins feels right. And like I said, I would put the ceiling at the AFC Championship. I don't know if we win that game, but we should at least get there.
I can agree with a lot of that. I think your ceiling is the FC Championship. I do think that's a little bit of a reach, but it could happen, and I wouldn't be, terribly shocked if that did. But I think more realistically for y'all is losing in the wild card round to the Titans. I know you're going to hate me for it, but the Titans, I do believe in heavily. They've gotten a ton better, and they haven't really gotten bored of so much areas, and they've made some, impressive runs in the past, like we brought up earlier against the Ravens and all that. But I do, again, want to thank you guys for coming on the Mamba's Legacy podcast. Remember, DM me your links and all that. I will post them in the description. Huge shout out, and hopefully we can work together in the future, guys.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. Thanks for having us on. As always, it's fun to do it. And by all means, we're going to have to bring you on our show sometimes if we ever play Denver in the near future. And even then, we could just talk Peyton Manning because he's the greatest.
Definitely. We'll talk about how the Broncos just beat the brakes out of y'all. So, joking around, but in all seriousness, again, thank you guys for coming on. And remember, guys, like and subscribe, and we'll have more content for you guys coming out soon.